Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 380 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our third book is called From Letters to Leaders, Leveraging Your Fraternity or Sorority Experience to Land Your Dream Job. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there's nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, as a whole, Gen Z is incredibly driven. But I've also seen some college students struggle when things just don't go their way, and sometimes they even give up. Resilience is what separates those who are going to be successful and those who aren't, because inevitably you will run into obstacles in life. So in college, when you get hit, be sure to dust yourself off, get back up. Understand that it's going to happen multiple times in your career. I promise. It has happened to me. And your ability to succeed ultimately depends on you building good habits right now. So let's talk a little bit more about that with our next guest. Cristina Ramirez is a serial entrepreneur bringing her empowerment curricula to audiences everywhere, from college students to corporations. Her programs have been implemented across 41 states with over 10,000 individuals. She's a veteran of Wall Street and Silicon Valley, and Cristina is an award-winning coach, best-selling author, Ironman triathlete, and a USASA Snowboard national silver medalist. She has lived in Brazil, Chile, Morocco, and across the United States. She speaks 5 languages and has been interviewed in Spanish, Portuguese, and English. Cristina is a widowed single mom, and when not on her computer, you will find her traveling with her boys, hiking with her dogs, or even cleaning the cat litter, which is my favorite occupation. Welcome to the show, Cristina.
Thank you. And it's funny because I just cleaned the cat litter this morning. So it is true.
You and me both. For some reason, I have cat litter duty too, the two of us together.
Yeah.
Why us? I don't know. So let's talk a little bit about your undergraduate experience. I think this is a really interesting college that you were at. You decided on Wellesley College in Massachusetts for your undergraduate experience. So tell our audience, why was Wellesley your choice?
So I came to the US as a senior in high school, and I parachuted from Morocco into a boarding school in the middle of nowhere, Connecticut, all girls, as a senior. So you can imagine that that was kind of a rough transition. And I wasn't really thinking about college, and the college counselor at the school gave me a list, and I went through the list and I applied, and Wellesley was the best school that I got into. Fun fact, I had no idea it was an all-girls school. I didn't bother to read the brochure, because I was just so not in, I was just I'm too cool for it. I don't know what I was thinking. So when I got in and I realized, this is the best school that I got into, and I wanted the education more than I cared about whether there was a boy or not. And I landed there, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
That's hilarious. I mean, if you would have seen even one brochure, you would have seen all female students on this brochure.
That's how little attention I was paying, They must have been in the Common App, because I didn't apply to anything that wasn't Common App. So, or maybe it was. It was.
That is so great. That's absolutely hilarious. You know what? I mean, listen, I love the fact that my kids today, I mean, they want to go and tour every campus and to really understand the decision. So they're taking all the time, and we're doing all of the tours and all of that. But to be honest with you, I did the same thing that you did. I never even went to campus before I chose the University of Buffalo. And then I got there and I'm like, oh, it's really cold here. It snows a lot. And there's 30,000 students that I don't know what to do with. So there you go. You and I are identical in that way.
And it's funny, I have a rising senior in high school right now, so we're just starting that process. So it's fun to see the differences of how we're we're approaching it. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Your kids are going to be totally different than you, and you look at things very differently. And I think that's what I've learned is that, the kids are going to be their own individual humans with their own personalities, their own preferences, and that may or may not correspond with what you would choose.
100%, for sure.
For sure. So, how did you go from being the girl at the back of the gym smoking pot to Ironman triathlete 3 times? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no. So from the back of the gym smoking pot, I developed an addiction. I then became a suicidal addict in a mental institution. And when I realized that I wasn't dying, and I'm not an idiot, right? Like, I think that if I really, like, if I think sometimes when we're in that deep, dark space, we feel like we want to die, but it's usually that we just want to stop feeling the way that we were feeling and we don't have a way out. So I was lucky and I found my way out of that situation. And when I had kids, I wanted to be like an active mom and like a cool mom and do things with them. Dude, I couldn't even run across around the block without gasping for air. I was just like, sports was not my thing.
Mm.
So I ran a 5K in my neighborhood. And when I finished that 5K, you would have thought that I won an Olympic gold medal by how I felt. It was like, oh my God, I ran a 5K, like me, like other people fine, but me. And if I can do that, what else can I do? And that little feeling, if I could bottle it and sell it, I would be a good billionaire. But that became my new high. That's what I was chasing, that feeling of, oh, I just did that. What else can I do? And that got me into running longer races and triathlons. And eventually I went, Ironman was kind of a progression of that, chasing that bottled feeling of empowerment.
Good for you. That is an amazing story. I love that. And you're also a veteran of Wall Street and Silicon Valley. And then you go from that to being a preschool teacher. So,
Mhm.
what made you decide to go from Wall Street to Sesame Street?
Another funny story. So when I was at Wellesley, I was all excited and I told my parents, I'm going to be a teacher. And then they told me, it's like, then you're going to leave Wellesley because I'm not going to pay for it. I was an international student, so they were paying for my college.
Mm.
And so I was like, oh, I believed them. And I was like, okay. So, banks come to recruit at the college and I go into Wall Street. But if you knew me, like, and you saw me on Wall Street, you'd be like, what the hell are you doing there? Like, it's not a match. So I feel like when I became a preschool teacher, it was because I had my kids and we were all going to the same school and, they were going to get a scholarship to go to the school that I was teaching. And that was way more me than Wall Street ever was. But it was just like a really roundabout way of getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes, things just don't work out the way that you plan and you make changes, I think, in life and you figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you. So I think all of it is just really, really fascinating. The other thing about you that I think is really interesting is that you did this neighborhood 5K that you're talking about, and you suddenly turned that into being an entrepreneur. So
Mhm.
how did that work?
Yeah. So when I came back from my third Ironman, I missed my kids' kindergarten Halloween party, and I felt horrible. I felt like the worst mom ever. So I decided, by then teaching was just a job, and I didn't want. I wanted to be a mom more than I wanted that job. So I had to find some way to make some cash. And, I quit being a teacher. So I went to my kid's school and I talked to the principal and I said, hey, I've got this idea. What if I do a little run club after school and I'll donate a percentage of my profits back to the school PTA? And she said, great. And I said, great. And that's how I started with like 20 kids. Little did I know everything that was going to happen from there, right? So I realized that I would create these games for the kids and they were hard and challenging, but by the end of the game, they were feeling what I felt from that neighborhood 5K. So I created a curriculum that was challenging, that would push kids into their discomfort zone so they can get confidence from it and that's my business. I started then teaching that to kids. Then I started teaching moms how to start a business to teach this curriculum to the kids. And from there it evolved.
Wow, that is just absolutely incredible. And your book, it's called Empowered by Discomfort. You tell this heartbreaking story where you lost your husband to cancer. And during that process, you had this voice that was telling you that you thought your life was over, but somehow the best was yet to come. So how did you get through really what was the worst year of your life?
Yeah, it was I used the same tools that I have been teaching for years and that I teach, in my curriculums and even through running. If you would have told me like I'm trying to think, it's like at that time, all I could hang on to was the hope, right? Like I had been in a horrible situation before. I got out of it. I everything that I wanted in life, I always wanted to be married and have a family. I got all of that after I got sober. And I felt like I was in the same kind of desperate situation where the emotion was so strong and the pain was so enormous. But if I did it before, I could do it again. And I think it was that thread that really helped me navigate that. And being a mom, I have two kids that I need to parent. And he, my husband was the love of my life. It was like a fairy tale kind of marriage thing. Um, and he died, but I didn't, and nor did my kids. So I had to rise up and start again. And having had the experience of being in a psych ward and being suicidal, I had that little thread of hope that I could have, hold on to, because I had thought my life was over before.
Mhm.
This was just it's another challenge that I was going to have to go through.
Ugh, you're a really great writer, and reading your book, I felt like I was right there with you, with you and your husband. And man, what a difficult ordeal you had to go through there. But you came through on the other side in a really successful way. And you believe in building confident children by allowing them to fail, which I think is sometimes really difficult for us as parents. We want to make sure that they're successful, and we want to do everything in our power to make sure that they're successful. So what did you mean by that in terms of allowing them to fail?
Yeah, so you don't gain confidence from, getting everything right. You don't gain confidence from being in your comfort zone. Confidence, I believe, is a lifelong habit of approaching things that are difficult and learning from them and coming out on the other side. So I remember my kid, like he was really little and he had like a soccer match for like those 15-minute soccer matches. The kid did nothing other than, I mean, I love him, but he was like sitting on the floor picking his nose for like 10 minutes. And at the end, he still got a trophy that was bigger than he was. So if we do nothing and we get so much, like recognition for nothing, then wow, like, when what happens? Like then when we don't get recognition because we do nothing, then it means like, we're not developing the confidence. Confidence comes from like, wow, I did something that was really hard and other people appreciate that. Like I got a trophy because I earned it, not because I'm cute. That's a completely different feeling of receiving that trophy. Right. So that's my belief that if you don't let them struggle, if you don't let them fail, they'll never learn. And I would have moms that, we have a medal challenge. And if you don't finish the challenge, you do not get the medal, period. You'll get a second chance, a 10th chance. Like I'll meet up with you another day on a Saturday. It doesn't, but if you don't do it, you're not going to get it. And on the other side of that, when they finally get it, that medal means so much because Lord knows they struggle to get it.
hmm Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I'm also, trying to parent my kids really in the same way that you're parenting your kids as well. How do we sabotage our self-worth by looking at others? Because I think, this is a tricky part where my kids, I know they're looking at their friends on social media, and I'm concerned about their self-worth. So how do we sabotage that self-worth by checking out what everybody else is doing?
Yeah. So we look at social media and that like intellectually, we understand that that's curated, right? That's not life. They're showing you the best of the best of the best of whatever most like out of, they'll make having a coffee look beautiful and exciting. But we compare how we feel, our inside, to a curated outside of what somebody is portraying. That's like, you're going to lose every single time. You're going to compare and you're going to despair because, again, like you're comparing their outside to your inside. You're also probably comparing all of your life to one thing, an aspect of their life. So, maybe they're showing is like, wow, I'm really good at archery. And so like all their videos are archery and they're like in some really cool places. And you're like, oh my God, I can barely, I don't know, like do something basic. And here they are being archery, but you're comparing all of your experience, all of your life to the one thing that they're good at.
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to lose no matter what. So, and then the third thing that we compare and despair is that maybe you're like, oh my God, they're so good. And they have like 20 million gajillion followers and they've done all of these things. And you're comparing their chapter 11 to your chapter 1. So maybe you're just starting, right? Maybe you're just starting something and you're comparing yourself to someone that has been doing it for 10 years. Doesn't mean that they're better or smarter. It just means that they've been doing it for 10 years and you're just starting. You're going to lose every time. So if you keep that in mind when you're looking at social media, like what are you doing? How are you comparing yourself? And you're losing. And that's just a habit. And you can change that, right? You can look at it and be like, oh, that's what I'm doing. I'm comparing their outside to my inside. Oh, that's what I'm doing. They've been at this longer than I have. And you can put some thought behind it, and then you can just stop it. It's just a habit, right? Like a thought is a habit that you do over and over again. That's it.
I love that advice. That is excellent. Now, the listeners that we have right now, they're going to be running companies in the future. And one of the things that I'm concerned with as a business owner is increasing profitability for the company. How can I do that by empowering all of the speakers that are on my team with what you call a growth mindset?
Yeah. So we think that if we invest in the people that work for us, that maybe they're going to learn something and then they're going to leave, right? But that's just a belief, and that's actually not true. So if you look at research, employees who feel like the company invests in them and are trained by their companies actually stay like 40 to 60% more in that company. So, like that's just the way it is. So and so if you have a company and you like, would you rather have the people work for you that are afraid of making a mistake, that are like trying to protect their turf and their identity, or would you rather create a culture and have the people that are working for you in a place where they're daring, they're innovative, but they might get things wrong sometimes, and when they get things wrong, they're not fired, but they're like, you learn from them and you create, who's going to be more profitable for you in the long run, right? A fixed mindset is when you believe that you're born with an innate talent or intelligence, and that cannot be developed. A growth mindset is that whatever intelligence and skill that you want, you can grow it with time and effort. You want people that want to learn. You don't want people that think that they're so smart that there's nothing you can tell them or teach them, because they won't take any risks, because it's too dangerous to risk that, to risk how you see them.
Right.
So
That's
does
really
that?
good advice. I like that. I mean, I just came back from a weekend where we were training all of our speakers in Atlantic City, and we had a couple of experts come in to talk about, how we can get more of our programs accepted at conferences, and another one that was talking about how do we use data in order to show our clients that we're getting measurable progress. And it was just really enlightening. And I tell you, everybody who was there was just blown away with the information. And clearly, I'm investing in their success. But it's really interesting to me to kind of look at it from that viewpoint, which is you really want those people that want to be in the room, that are going to want to learn and ultimately take some risks, do things that maybe they're not comfortable with. And those are ultimately going to be the best assets that we have for the company. And it's just been interesting to look at it from that perspective in terms of looking at some of the people that have stayed a really long time since
Mhm.
inception, and then the others that, maybe come and go, right? So really, really interesting stuff. I like that. Okay. So in 2023, you adapted training to a corporate setting on growth mindset and resilience. And you talk about this 95% success rate with 17.5% of the participants actually said that your training was life-changing for
Mhm.
them. Can you give us some examples of maybe a success story that you had with a particular corporate account with this training?
Sure. Because like I'm so proud of that because it's like I didn't make that up. Like that's for real. That's great. So when you come into the training that I do is experiential, right? So you're not just sitting there listening, you actually play games that whatever. So we talk about growth mindset and then we play a game so that you really embody and feel it, like what it would feel like to face these situations.
Mhm.
Um, so we had a marketing company, and their issue was that, I talked to the CEO before we start the training to see what they want to focus on. And he said that his team was afraid to ask for help. So his team was very productive and super ambitious, and everybody did really well, but they all kind of had this fixed mindset where they had to do it themselves in order for it to be their accomplishment. And they had to do it themselves because if not, it was like a sign of weakness asking for help.
Mhm.
So we had to change that thought. And we talked about asking for help being a gift, right? So when you ask me for help, I feel good because I like helping you and I have something that I can teach you. And that's like, that feels amazing to me.
Mhm.
But if you thought like, well, I have to think about this all by myself and I have to figure it out, and you don't ask me for help, you're making your life harder. You're going to be less productive. It's going to take longer. And you're denying me the chance of feeling good about myself.
Mhm.
So you're actually like hurting me in a way, right? So when we change that, then it creates a completely different culture of, okay, like me asking you for help is not a bother. Me asking you for help is not a sign of weakness. Me asking you for help is a gift. And when you like, it's just a little tweak that changes everything. And so the collaboration in that company starts improving, and everybody just changes because now it's like all of a sudden everybody went through the same training. We play this game that it's the only way you win is if you ask for help, otherwise it's just impossible. So everybody had the same experience, and now they have a shared mindset and a shared vocabulary.
That's really cool. And I think that's also a really good way to build rapport with other people. They say, when you meet somebody new, if you can ask them for advice on something, they'll walk away from that particular interaction saying, that person, Christina, she's really smart. She asked me for advice. Like, it's so funny how these things work. It's hilarious.
Um, well, everybody's favorite topic is themselves,
Sure.
right? So you that's sales, right? You just have them talk about themselves, and if and that's how they're gonna think that you know more because they had the opportunity to share. So
100%. I love this. Well, this has been really, really fun. Now, we do love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. And on occasion, I get to your neck of the woods over there in Santa Fe. So I'm wondering if maybe you have a food recommendation for me where I can get a great meal in Santa Fe.
sure. Well, first, if you're ever in Santa Fe, you've got to look me up,
All right.
and I'll take you to the place. But
That's
there's
a deal.
so my favorite place is actually a big tourist destination here in Santa Fe, and it's a restaurant called Tomasitas. It's very old school, but everything from the architecture to the food is very authentic New Mexican, and it's delicious. So you get to have like the vibe and the ambience as well as good food. So that's probably where I would take you.
That's fantastic. Authentic New Mexican. See, this is something that I crave, but I don't have in Nashville, Tennessee, where I live. So I'm really excited for this because I know it's going to be delicious.
It-
All right, this has been great. So, if our listeners, if they want to purchase your book, they want to get coaching, maybe they want to hire you to speak on their college campus, where should they go in order to connect with you?
Sure. So my website is Empowered by Discomfort, which is also the name of my book. And if you go there, all my coaching programs, my speaking, my corporate training, it's all there. It's kind of a hub for all things Christina. And people think I'm crazy, but I answer all the emails and there's like a little contact form in there. So if you have a question, anything, just write to me and I may not get back to you, the very next minute, but I will get back to you. And I love hearing from you. So please feel free to reach out.
Check it out. All right. Empoweredbydiscomfort.com. Check out Cristina Ramirez, her website, her book, her coaching. She's got so much great information on that website. So I know that it's going to be a really valuable tool for our college students. So, Cristina, thank you so much for sharing all of this with our listeners. It was really helpful.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity of being here. I enjoyed it very much.
Of course, it's our pleasure. And to our listeners, if you like this talk with Cristina Ramirez, make sure that you like it. Make sure that you share it on social media. And we look forward to seeing you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.